everybody. Welcome to Cannabis Tech Talks. This is Charles Warner, and I'm here with a very impromptu media roundtable at the Cannabis Science Conference. And we're super excited to chop it up with you for, about 10 or 15 minutes and just talk about the state of the state with media, the conference here, and of course, maybe some new products to be looking out for in the future. With that being said, if everybody here could just kind of introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump right in.
Great. Hi, Rachelle Gordon, CFN Media. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
I'm Julie Chiariello, co-owner at Skunk magazine.
Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
My name is Max Nash. They call me Ms. Max because I'm the old lady, and I'm curious about cannabis.
Okay.
And I'm John Sidline with Canna Newswire.
All right, John, welcome. We go back from the last time in Portland. We had the
media panel on the CCC conference, collaborative conference.
That's right.
Cannabis collaborative conference.
It's always good to be back in Portland. So what do you guys think? What's kind of the state of the state right now with regards to media and cannabis? What are you noticing as far as like maybe trends or, just overall your impressions of how the media is going?
With Skunk magazine, we're a 15-year-old publication, and we've been devoted to organics and sustainability the whole time. And so for us, we've gone even further in the last 5 years to say, this isn't just about healing with the plant. This isn't just about regenerative farming. It's actually about practicing regenerative business and actually having, ethical standards, having companies and corporations that are actually, being responsible community members and nourishing their community and fighting for prisoners and still in the drug war and really giving back, not just being about, money making as usual. So for us as a media company, our focus, the leading edge for us, is about bridging into authenticity, bridging into true connection, because that's what I feel our world really needs right now, is to make that connection and take it further, take the conversation further. So I think I'm a little bit on the fringe, in terms of asking that question. I don't necessarily think that all media sources are doing that, but that's our leading edge.
Okay.
I feel as a patient that they are, and it's this observation, they're marketing to the rec market. And in Oregon, we have this oversaturation of product, they say, but they're marketing to the people who are already using it and who are buying it at such a low rate, and they're buying, data shows, entry-level products, versus marketing to people who probably already tried it in a way, but to let them know that there's new kinds of products. You don't have to smoke it. It's a plant, not a weed, and changing those perceptions. But their marketing media continues to market to their own people who are already using it. There's a huge market out there. I just wish they would shift to that a little bit more. I think the hemp CBD market has opened up curiosity.
Yeah.
All kind of works out. But for my URL someday. But it's really shifting. But our industry isn't yet. That's my.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. On our side, since we're covering the investment side of the cannabis industry, I can say that is a very hot topic.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to get in, and everybody wants to know what the silver bullet is. Who's the next Google, who's the next Apple, and unfortunately, people are so eager that I think there's a little bit of up and down on that marketplace. So I think that we have to really stay true and make sure that we're sharing accurate information, but also looking further ahead, not just to what's the harbinger of the industry, because we just don't have one yet.
Yeah, and I think that's the balance. A lot of people talk about the green rush. I told you I'm more focused on a renaissance. I call it a green renaissance. But we have to still pay attention that we are kind of in this .com kind of quagmire, and we're going to probably be there for the next 10 years. And so I feel, even though not all publications, I love what you're doing and the idea of application of science. Only 15% of our doctors know about the endocannabinoid system. So speaking to what you're saying, as the science continues to get applied, then more and more people, whether they use or not, or whether they find alternatives to use, they're going to start to be more informed. And we can start to reach more people and quell this opiate crisis, which is really not a crisis. It's being pushed. So I'm really excited about pushing the science and also educating those financial people. I've had a lot of conversations about, hey, what can we do with our money? Do you believe in conscious money? Do you believe in maybe helping to change how we're doing business on the planet? So it's not so greed laden and about our portfolios and poisoning soils and waterways. So that's an interesting conversation to have, I think, with finance, because there is so much desire to get in. So I'm trying to have that balancing conversation.
I have kind of a different perspective,
Yeah.
because where we are, we sit between PR people and the media, so we're seeing a lot of different things. So taking the content piece out of it for a second, there's been an explosion of new titles, new publication titles over the last year. And they're not, 2 years ago, where we saw a lot of the competition was on a national level, where publications were trying to be all things to all consumers or all things to all business people on a national level. Then we started to see more niche publications kind of fill in. Now that explosion is happening on the niche side. But what's another interesting thing that's happening is larger content syndicators, they don't want to necessarily jump in with both feet into cannabis, so they're finding publications out there to syndicate contents from. The Fresh Toast just signed a big content syndication deal with Tribune Media Company, which is putting all of their stuff into where the Chicago Tribune syndicates, and so I think it's something like...
So it's going to be accurate information that gets reported in the national media, possibly? Is that what I'm...
I think it's going to be... I think it's going to be newer... I think there's a lot of editors who are now, and publishers who are saying that understand there's curiosity among their readers. And how can you ignore the fact that there's been this swell, just on the policy side, right? There's been this avalanche of new stuff happening. So you're kind of, if you're the Chicago Tribune, you're kind of an idiot if you don't
start a section.
Right.
And I've gotten frustrated how they think they start to tell the story,
specialists,
but they end at just this point to then finish in the like in a national level, to end the conversation with a little bit of information, a little education. Is it snake oil? Blah, blah, blah. It's not tested, blah, 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 in the hip market. However, they could end that sentence with, if you are in a state where there's a medical or recreational and there are testing, you can support standards, that is where they are starting. They can start that it's not all this scary. Actually, the dispensaries are a better choice right now to buy your CBD only, which is that hint. And I get so frustrated. I get so frustrated how they end that sentence.
So we have limited media in cannabis because of regulations, right? So magazines, you mentioned the prevalence of these publications coming out. Like print has almost experienced a renaissance in the cannabis space because it's one of the few places where they can advertise.
Right.
So that means we have an obligation or a responsibility, as the media, as one of the dominant forms of media in the cannabis space to get it right.
Well, Charles, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
As a publisher, do you create a title because you think there's an advertising opportunity? You can sell advertisements, or is it a content issue for subscriptions? Because I think most publications are not making money on the subscriptions; they're making money on the advertising.
Yeah.
And so I think there's only so many publications
and we have a mixed
model.
Put
it out in.
And
we have a mixed model,
personally.
But yeah, I think that, to survive, we're 15 years old.
Right.
We've gone through many different iterations over this journey. And what I would say is, we've diversified. We went from 13 issues a year to 4. And then we are relaunching our digital magazine. We just finished fighting a 5-year court battle in the Canadian courts because we also had a distribution arm. And we were also bringing genetics in from Europe into Canada. So that court case was about that. But what I would say is that, you really do have to diversify as a publication. And, niche is one thing.
Yep.
Ad-driven is one thing. Subscribers is one thing. And then, when you look at the digital, which I love what you're doing and want to continue to see.
I want to find
we're
out more
going to be
about that
launching
too.
our digital magazine again so that we're a global voice. Our third largest audience is Spain. So I think it's really about diversification and staying agile.
You mentioned before that this is sort of like a .com style bubble that's emerging in cannabis.
Yeah.
Just to compare. So in the .com era, when we were about at the same period of time, there were PR agencies that would list about 40 publications in their top tier that are covering the .com era, the .com market. 40 is a big number for PR. It's a PR, you basically, if you can count to 10, awesome, right? So 40 is huge. Today in cannabis, we have over 800 titles just publishing in the United States. And I would say that easily you can put 60 of those publications on the top tier list, you know, depending on what you're looking for. Now, there's obviously a very top echelon of that as well, but it's massive. So it's a challenge both for...
I've watched it happen.
But
there used to just be Skunk in High Times and then Weed World in UK. So we've watched all the titles come in as we
one by
stood
one.
the test of time.
But what are we doing to go outside the market? Like, what are you going to go out and marketing to the people who, in the places where they're going to want to pick up that magazine? Where are we going to the people who might not want to, you know, at the grocery store, a little something on there, like they might be willing to do that. What are we doing about that?
Barnes and
Like,
Nobles.
Those kind of things. Like, those more extent. I would love to see more companies who are larger and possibly have some funding that can support an education platform. Maybe there's some things behind it that support financially, but really show the world that you are not about just selling your product, that you really do believe in this medicine, you believe in this plant, and you're willing to invest in education of
That's
our
our
market.
whole devotion.
Here's a great philosophy I use. You can't sell the product until you educate on the ingredient. You have a jar of marinara. You don't know what a tomato is, and I'm trying to say if this is good for you. It actually might taste good. It might be kind of fun sometimes too, but you don't even understand how it might help you. But yet I'm saying, here, buy this concentrate tomato.
Oh, absolutely.
And it looks pretty, but you're just like, I don't really know much about that. So maybe another time. So what are we doing to really help educate people on tomatoes?
Well, that's why I have an issue with the green rush. That's my issue with the green rush, because there's no application of science. Laws are being written.
There's so much science out there. People just have to.
It's not being applied.
Look a small one. Like you can. The whole thing about cannabis, and I tell people, like you walk into your pharmacy, OTC, and you pick that thing that's $3. And by the way, you don't know that if you take too much of that sleep aid, it's going to give you urinary retention. By the way, I have a concussion and I have a hard time finding a few words. And so, but you're willing to do that, but yet not go into a dispensary, rub something on, or put around a plant that has never killed anyone ever in time. Not even that OTC, take out the whole bottle, like a few of those might kill you.
Well, I think
that we just, like, how do we get people out of that?
Well, I think there's like two different issues here. You know, one is you know what John was asking was, you know, our model of you know, we have to do everything that I think all the magazines are doing right now, which is obviously you've got to have the content, you've got to have the audience, and you've got to diversify how the content gets out. You know, there's got to be video and podcast and, you know, stuff like that. The magazine is still our flagship and we love it and we're passionate about the quality we put in our publications. But we also know that people like to consume stuff, you know, different ways.
Sure.
Podcasts are big. Videos are great.
Right.
You know, that's what everybody watches on social media. It's videos.
I'd be interested to hear Rachelle's opinion on news, because there's one thing to write about the science and what's happening on a macro level, but there's hundreds of companies that are, a lot of them are startups in this market, right? Most of them, vast majority. And not all of them have money for major PR budgets and so forth, but they have innovation, they have great ideas.
Yeah.
How do companies like that get into these 800 publications? We're chasing essentially stories from the same 15 companies, right? How many times is Tilray and MedMen and whatever? They don't need to have any more coverage, honestly.
The worst companies.
Right. Well, it's no comment. But but how do those companies, the smaller companies, get their news into all these?
Well, you know, for CFN, we're a completely digital platform. And we've really gone all in on our video content as of late, because you're right, people want short snippets that they can consume. You know, people's attention spans these days, I think, are shorter than ever. And so
Easily digestible.
digestible.
And do you go to a certain age, genre? Is there a focus, like millennial versus... And my focus is over 40. There's like this aging, or you've had injuries and you ache and you hurt. It's not about getting high.
Right.
When you pick your, who do you market?
Well, CFN's target audience would be accredited investors in the space, and then entrepreneurs and a B2B sort of side. But we do have a component of our business model that is an agency component doing investor relations. So companies who are considering going public might engage us in that sense, or companies who are startups who would love to come to a conference like this, but it costs, you know, an arm and a leg to fly everyone out and present, and not everyone can afford to go to an ArcView show to pitch. But perhaps you can make a quick 60-second, 2-minute pitch video to send to potential investors and find that on our website or our channels or anywhere else. And, that could lead to a deal. So there's a lot of different ways to get the information out there. And I do think that, both digital and print, especially in this industry, are both crucial.
Yeah.
It's hard to report news, though. And there's a large amount of it out there. And,
And miss news.
Well, I'm just talking about like product news or company news. And I think that there needs to be a vehicle in the media for, you would imagine something like MJ Biz Daily. But they're focused on more of the upper end of the market. So the long tail is being ignored, but that's where a lot of this innovation is coming from.
I'd love to answer your question too, John, because I have actually thought about it a lot. I come from a background of health and wellness and empowered consumerism, conscious capitalism. Before I got into the industry 15 years ago, I was actually incubating health and wellness products, yoga clothes globally. I taught yoga to kids. So that work as a healer, that work as has informed my business. And what I wanted to do was create a platform that actually could help entrepreneurs incubate. So talking about what you're talking about, my publication is not a pay-to-play. But if you are walking your talk in some way, whether you're leading edge tech, leading edge farm, solutions, what you're bringing, I want to know. And then I invite people to speak in the space. And I'm definitely saying this to anyone out there that has something that is of interest and of meaning and substance. Reach out to us, because we actually will share your content. We'll give bios and link backs to your pages. We will help incubate your brand without charging you anything. And then I ask companies to invest that are ready with a marketing budget. Then they're happy to invest in print and digital, because they see that for us, we'll incubate, we'll help them succeed as a company. Just because we're really interested in their innovation getting out there. So that's, just to answer your question, that's what we're doing.
Charles, you guys are a sponsor here. What are you guys doing?
Well,
Besides sponsor.
No, I think you bring up a really good point, Julie, that we have an obligation almost to be the tip of the spear and move this industry forward. And that means helping the events, that means helping the entrepreneurs, that means helping the content creators. That means also, though, and this is where it gets tricky, we have an obligation to bring the real. And sometimes that means we can't be cheerleaders.
Right.
Precisely. there's that fine line, like there's some topics that kind of right now are a little uncomfortable in the industry, and we have to decide, do we want to talk about them, or do we want to just, cover our eyes and pretend that everything's all rosy, because there are some issues there.
I think we should learn our lessons from past
we kind of, we have an
We're
obligation.
the rabble rousers, though. I
Yeah.
mean, we are the renegades. We've been known as the irreverent magazine because we will talk about the hard truths.
Yeah.
And we will say, hey, the green rush and business as usual, that's part of the disease on this planet. So how can we change that conversation? Cannabis came to us to help us heal how we're living with our resources.
There's that authenticity
not continue
we were
in
talking
this way
about.
where we're poisoning our soils and our waterways.
Yeah.
This can't go on, but it is going on. People are still upholding this ideal of, well, I have a great portfolio and I invested in Tilray and I invested in canopy growth, and well, that's really nice. That's great. Let's connect the dots. And how, Corona is connected with Nestle, is connected with damaging our world right now. So I'm glad you're happy about your success, but what is it doing to our world?
Well, and I try really, really hard, just as a journalist, that even though, we're reporting on some of these companies and, maybe some of them could potentially be people that we're representing in the IR space, to remain objective though, which, there can be a gray line there, especially, for this platform. But for me personally, it's really important. For example, they were courting potentially Ignite as a client. And I said, if you even think about it, I'm leaving this company.
And I have also said that.
And
so I have boycotted Ignite,
Good for you.
boycotted WeedMD.
Yep.
And so for me, I will set that standard. I'm not saying everybody's going to do that.
Are people going to do
it
it to the
takes all
product level
kinds
too, though? Or
It
they
takes-
it's the product. Like, there was a local product here that was taken.
Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break for this week's podcast, and would like to also give a shout out to our sponsor, Rayware Clothing Company. Rayware provides the ultimate protection for cultivators. So that is very interesting, because right now, talking about sustainability, over in the mainstream world, big brands like Procter & Gamble, they just launched a campaign called Brands for Good, and there's a bunch of other companies that are part of, I think it's called Sustainable Brands, that they are using their marketing dollars to activate their consumers. In other words, they're not going to use their marketing dollars anymore to say we want to sell, more diapers or we want to sell this. We want to turn our audience into a force for good, and they've all come together to do that. I think that
Thank
is,
you.
that's
what I meant.
Yeah.
The leading edge of advertising is authenticity, and these big companies are actually showing that. I think that a lot of people in the cannabis space don't get that. They're still not getting that. And, maybe I'm sharing the secret sauce, but
let's share.
Because why is the plant here for us? Is to do those things, to have companies be ethical in a whole new way.
Why can't we learn from our
communities.
lessons of everything else and put, why do you want to put your heads? I started Oregon's first software company and employee number 117. And here's what I see right now is there's a lot of connections of how industry, young people, not really sure what to do. I mean, there's so many things. And I've done business development and various things, and I just want to help sometimes. That fighting the big man and the people who are coming new into it and all this thing, that money, by the way, is going to give you a good paycheck possibly and benefits. And if you can help be a part of it and not fight it, you can help grow it into what you might want to be. And like what you guys are doing, you're saying no, you're standing your ground, you're helping your leaders journey through that path of making decisions. Now, at some point, if you don't, then you stay true to the ground, hopefully, that kind of thing. But it has to be the leaders and the people guiding the companies that don't know.
I think everybody plays their role. I mean, what I try and do in business is I try and observe nature. I actually try and observe the plant and how she works. And, in nature, we need shadow, we need death, we need destruction. Nothing gets done without those forces. And so I try and apply that wisdom to business and understand that everybody is going to be playing their role in this industry, and we will have the greedy factions. They function as the shadow. But what does the shadow do? The shadow pushes innovation. The shadow pushes evolution. The shadow pushes the conversation. But I'm meant to play my role too. I'm meant to speak up and hold a standard.
Exactly.
But I can have respect, and I do as a human being. I will speak to the owner of. I spoke with the owner of Dope, and I said, "You're kind of like David. We're friends." And I said, you're kind of like Anakin Skywalker. You went to the dark side a little bit there, man.
Sorry, Tranimal.
But then I introduced him to my son.
They had a good Halloween party.
I know, and he's an awesome guy.
I love him.
We laughed about it, and he's like, you're a badass for saying that. But then we also talked about our families, and we talked about just who we were as human beings. And I think that that's the kind of respect. Hey, we can all hold different opinions, and we can still be respectful, and we can still be kind human beings. And I know that it's going to continue to evolve.
I think for me, the CCC, what was the CCC?
Collaborative Conference.
Yes, that one right there in March. Was that right? That for me was a great conference, and you were there, right?
Yep.
Of the shift of just this truly collaborative, and I haven't felt that in a lot of places. And for me, this I'm not producer. I'm more here from informational and looking for standards and testing, just all sorts of ways, and from the patient aspect. So I don't have that, but I just felt that CCC was this really amazing connection
this
here in Portland
specifically
too. And you tell me more here.
This conference has, look at all the folks in the media.
Well, that's true.
And there's a booth there for the media, and there's a booth over there for the media. This conference gets it. They understand it. And not only that, but they've given reporters stuff to write about.
Yes.
And a lot of these, what's missing, I think, is that these companies came here unprepared to unveil anything and use this conference as a platform for generating news about themselves.
Just conversation.
So they're just sort of here to sell their wares. But given the fact that there's so many reporters that were registered here, these companies should have come prepared to make an announcement. And give reporters a reason to want to write about them. And that's a missing piece also in the media landscape.
I think that's a really important point because especially in the area, now if we flip from the editorial to the advertising side, there's a lot of confusion amongst the advertisers, especially in the B2B cannabis space. And I've talked to a lot of them, and they're like, because they can only do print and events, and there's some video and stuff that they can do or whatever, but they're kind of limited too. And they're always like, how do I know if my marketing is working? They're like, I'm placing these ads, I'm going to these events. How do I get an ROI? And I'll tell you, and I think it goes back to what you just said, is that you can't just place an ad. You can't just show up to an event. You have to activate.
It's multifaceted.
You've got to
Yes,
get some people to
absolutely.
help you, get those magazines, get the events, get
100%.
the journalists, get friends. And like you said, bring something to the table, because we're chomping at the bit to tell some great stories.
Yes.
But you can't just place an ad or just show up and expect to cross your arms and,
Yeah,
the
but
deals
those
roll
people
in.
know
Yeah.
about
No.
QR codes, the magic of QR codes,
Well-
and then the ability to track like every person if you want, and they don't have to take a piece
Yeah.
of paper. It's sustainable. It can go to your website. You can capture your data that people, then sell and use.
Data's
to
the
give
new
you
oil.
The data guy,
So much
intro.
data.
Josh, I'm going to skip back to the other thing.
All right.
So Josh Crosney
Yeah.
gets it. He understands media, but, and this is not Josh, if you're listening, this is not a whack at you. I think that when this show is remembered, it'll be remembered for Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
And
But
Amazon.
that's not unimportant.
No.
Fran Drescher was the
We saw her at
part of
Denver
it last year, right?
Yeah.
That's what people remembered, and it brings people to this event. But it's not necessarily communicating. It's communicating a story of the industry and why we're all here. Her story is important, but it's not their stories. It's just the prologue,
Yeah.
right? So, what brings the TV cameras onto the show floor to meet with all of these companies and learn about why these companies are important in the ecosystem? That's kind of a missing piece, also.
Mm.
Well, and I think that's when I went around as a patient. I kind of don't know what you do, but what I like, oh, you're killing powdery mildew. I'm going to read this across. So I know as myself, I then like, okay, I can have faith that these growers and producers, they're killing the powdery mildew with these equipment here. And so when I go back and educate, like, yes, they have standards. They're trying to create these, like these terpenes. They're trying to, and so creating layman's terms to all the people who don't know. So for me, a lot of people have been super helpful of kind of like layman's term in it for me of how I can then translate that back of where I can fit into it.
You
So
just
I
coined
will
a new
say
expression,
that.
layman's terming.
Layman's term. Oh my God, I've come up with some really good ones the other day in my concussion brain. I was trying to say the word, like the person had a chiseled physique and I was trying to explain them and I couldn't come up with that word. So they're now called strong face. So
But I
magical
wanted
concussion
to get,
words.
back
and
to your point,
CBD.
John, is that I think that companies in the space to actually survive this .com bubble that we're going to go through over the next 5-10 years, because there's going to be different implosions, I believe.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I do think that for companies, it is about understanding that every event has 15 to 20 different opportunities for them, and to assess those properly and to understand, what is the low-hanging fruit, for instance, here. Yeah, they could be incubating themselves in a way where they're not just waiting for that next person to walk up and be interested, but be multitasking,
Mm-hmm.
which is what us, we're doing in the media. We've had to stay agile. We've had to understand. It's not just doing one thing. It's not just doing a great print magazine. It's
Right.
doing 7 to 10 amazing things where
Yeah.
you're doing this multifaceted approach of engagement, and it's really dynamic. And that's the same thing that companies have to do.
Yes.
So we're helping them understand that.
I think
and understand how to incubate
publishers
themselves.
have to kick the door down with ideas nowadays. Like, you have to almost be like an agency as a publisher.
Oh,
You have
yeah.
to kick the door down. It can't just be, I got a full
We're a
page ad. Do
company
you want it?
incubator. Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and then
Because if you let the ad just sit there, it's
Right.
like, oh, here, give me your money and good luck.
Mhm.
I mean, I cannot do that because they're
Okay.
not going to get the results from that
Right.
that they want.
And
Right.
then also,
Yeah.
I think they're missing a low-hanging fruit, but bud tenders. They're paid $15 an hour. They don't have a lot of money. And I'll use an example in Oregon. We have the Oregon OCA, Oregon Cannabis Association, and ORCA, and they are both. Well, OCA is coming out with an industry membership. You can still attend, but so many bud tenders don't know it's even there. Honestly, their company is probably a company, and they don't know to come and get a free class on the art of compliance, how to say things. You need to do further in that. Is there something that your magazines kind of focus on those areas specifically?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're way into the education side.
yeah.
So that's
Super
we're,
smart.
We're
into-
different than a lot of the publications that are just covering kind of green rush lifestyle and who's cool and which celebrities in and all this kind of vapid, like the same thing. You could pick
Yeah.
up a lot of them and it's just like,
Right.
okay, well, this is just the same
It's cool.
thing.
We know it's
And
cool.
so for us, we actually teach people to grow organically. We've taught hundreds of thousands of people all around the world
That's
to grow
awesome.
organically.
Yeah.
A lot of people come up to me and go, Skunk Magazine taught me to grow. The Rev taught me to grow. And then also genetics. We educate people on genetics. So when you pick up our magazine, we want you to set it down having learned something, having benefited in some way. But that's our legacy. That's who we are.
One issue that we were talking about yesterday that is a big gap is when you are, in my example, hit by a car. You are at the hospital, then they go to your primary, you go to your primary, I'm allergic to narcotics, and they give you the same cocktail, everyone. Your anti-inflammatory, your narcotics, and we go through this. To tell bud tenders, again, our art of compliance about how to fill the gap of where your doctor's like, I can't help you, I can't do anything about it. You go to a bud tender, I can't say very much, I can't give you medical advice.
Yeah.
There are some people who are teaching art of compliance, and realistically, it's just more.
I think Colorado just made it where doctors can prescribe cannabis for pain.
Right.
So it's a state by state.
Bring your doctor the science. I tell everybody, tell them about their endocannabinoid system, because most doctors are actually angry that in 1992 this was discovered by Robert Mitchullam, and for some odd reason, because of the corruption and greed that plagues the medical society, that they have stopped this information being taught to doctors and nurses.
I was more the bud tenders of how they start to learn to fill the gap of, here's a way of how you say to use this product, this tincture could be put on a tampon and help for PMS, menopause, any other pain. This is how it has been used. And people can make their own assumption. You're not giving that medical advice on the art of compliance. Well, here's how things are used.
Skip that.
They're just left in the middle. They're just left in the middle.
The bud tenders go right to the patient.
Then how do we get people to get there?
Well, that's the thing is there's a lot of that's part of the problem. There's too many publications, and they're all. Where are the true experts, and how do you get people to become more of an advocate for themselves with information that...
I was so grateful. I have the knowledge of and people have just through myself ooh, I'm going to go to conferences on my own dime, by the way. No company is paying me. This every class that I go to is my own, and right now, I don't make rent either. So it's about that self-investment of your knowledge and your education, and I just become passionate and inflamed when I've learned about the political. That's what has sent me to move this forward.
So let me ask you this, because we gotta kind of wrap it up here. Where do you see it going? Moving forward, because I think we've touched on some really important things here, and I just really appreciate all of your perspectives and your expertise you've brought together. This is fun. Mm-hmm. What do you see kind of around the corner, or with regard to media and communication and stuff like that? What are you guys excited about, or anything new?
You want to go, Rachelle? You haven't spoken in a moment.
I can say for our side, the M&A activity and the public market activity in cannabis is exploding, and whether that is a good thing or a bad thing at this point remains to be seen. I do think that there are some extremely high valuations coming out that are premature to say.
Bananas.
So I would say, we're just going to continue moving forward and bringing the people the information that they need and to make their own decisions and do their own due diligence.
Yeah.
And I think that through a collaborative effort, through the different types of publications, from our end to the Skunk side, we're covering a lot of different ground, but you have to make sure that you're paying attention to all the different sources, not just one or the other, because there's always at least two sides to every story.
Absolutely. There's a million ways up the mountain. I would say for us, the leading edge for us is going to keep on bringing out the unsung, the unseen, the unheard in this evolution. And that's our function, which I'm very pleased with, because that's our part. That's our contribution to say, hey, we want a bigger table. We want all the voices at the table, and we want it to be authentic. We want to make the real connection. We want to actually have excellence in business that is ethical at the same time. And so we're going to keep on having that conversation and keep on bringing lots of different voices. And I'd love to speak with you, Rachelle. I know we're going to talk, Charles, about how we can keep on filling in finance, tech, science, because this is a full and multifaceted expression. It hits every area of our world, just like Jack Harrer said.
Yeah.
That, hemp and cannabis are here to actually not only transform and heal our bodies, but really transform how we do business. And I think that's the most exciting part of what we're doing.
What do you think, John?
I think there's going to be entropy. We should all brace ourselves in the media for that. There's going to be entropy.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There are too many trade shows. I think the trade shows that learn how to work with the media will survive, and those that don't will wither away because no one's going to really know about them other than their own little cadre of people. Same with the medium. There's just 800 titles is way too many. That'll probably shrink down to 200 in the next couple of years, next 18 months. And I think that there will be people who are specialists that know how to write, like Rachelle, who has a following of people and can freelance to other publications. And I think they'll be in demand for those 200. We'll have larger audiences who will then be able to pay for better writing, and that will continue. Actually, that entropy will continue, and we'll see more of a normal media landscape. We don't need that many publications. Right. We need to have at least a few that compete with each other so we can get good content.
Right. Absolutely.
I agree. I think that there is, one of the cool things about this is, and we do other tech magazines and like Innovation in Tech Today and Residential Tech Today, and they're fun and they're exciting, but it's not the same as being in this cannabis space right now because it's very collaborative. Like I feel like that there is a collaborative spirit, like just the act of consuming is generally it's a social experience. Exactly.
This whole industry is galvanized around one premise: making people feel good, however you want to define it.
I don't think we could end any better than that right there.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, thank you very much. Again, you've been chopping it up with Chuck, Cannabis and Tech Talks. Really excited to have everybody here. And let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Cannabis and Tech Talks. If you like this podcast, make sure that you subscribe and share with your friends. And if you're interested in being featured on Cannabis and Tech Talks or being an advertiser or a partner in our award-winning magazine, Cannabis and Tech Today, give us a shout and we will help tell your story to tens of thousands of cannabis industry influencers.